Dude, so I wasn't sure if I should call you based ethos or Nick or
Just call me Nick.
Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's a pleasure to have you on. I really like I went through most of your Instagram and I've seen the messages that you're putting, and there seems to be a similarity with there seems to be a trend of the soul bra kind of movement, the based somewhat movement of
Mhm.
um and I know that soul bra he revealed himself and he's not anonymous, but I was seeing on the internet different individuals that had this similar ethos of a holistic, wholesome way of living, going back to our ancient roots, and I was really enjoying it. And yeah, so I think I've been following you for some time. There's one Instagram profile called Based Living, I think. Is that
Mm.
you? Is that
No, that's a homie of mine,
a
though.
homie? Okay.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, so I was going through your content on Instagram, and almost all of your posts are just like invigorating with, for me at least, just informative for how you should act as a man and how to maybe remember how to live as a healthy human being, because I think
Mhm.
a lot of people forget that nowadays. I think we're so used to the medical industry, our education system telling us that we need to be prescribed something. So this has always been, I mean, it was a spark of natural curiosity. Like, I follow that, or I try to, and this is something that Soul Bra, you and others that have this type of ethos. It's an inspiration for men. I think that we don't really have this within our institutions, and I mean, I would I'll ask you what your perspective is, but I feel like our institutions are on the brink of kind of expiring or collapsing. Our education system, our government, and so just to give you a little context about myself, I moved to Austin about almost 3 years ago. Um, I got I experienced an epiphany through Bitcoin. So I started to learn about Bitcoin, and it really opened my eyes. And this was during COVID, so I was also observing the environment around me, understanding what was going on with COVID. This was probably like August of 2020, and I was just really not. I was not enthused with what was going on with the lockdowns, um, and
Really?
no, actually, I really loved them. I thought that was a good move for
Mm.
society. But so, anyways, yeah, I found Bitcoin around the August of 2020, and it pretty much radically opened my mind and gave me a lesson of economics, Austrian economics, and then understanding the current monetary system, which then led to how everything is pretty much connected. And so understanding the food system, I'm actually going to be, I spoke with Ryan Griggs from Regenaissance recently, Brett Ender from Meat Mafia. So I'm also um, pretty interested and passionate about fixing or trying to improve our food system. So yeah, I've been researching that and understanding it more and changing my lifestyle and seeing how it works with me. Like, yesterday I had locally sourced beef, Texas beef, eggs, raw milk, and um, just trying to implement this in my own lifestyle to see how it works and how it feels, and then um, but all of this was found through Twitter. So once I found Bitcoin, like through a book, I hopped on Twitter, and I saw a lot of Bitcoin enthusiasts as well as people like Solbra. I think I found your profile relatively recently, um, but I love your message, and I think that you're an inspiration for men. You said you were, like 26, 27 years old, and so we're kind of close. I'm 31, and I think we need more content creators, men like yourself, to inspire, like even myself. Like, I'm with this injury and with different phases of my life right now. Some of the quotes I have saved as well from your Instagram have been very inspirational and developing and sharpening my mindset with a more stronger uh, sentiment. And so, yeah, I mean, we literally just walked in the studio. We just met each other right now, so I want to kind of give that context. But um, would love to hear what. So, would you agree that there does seem to be this kind of decentralized social media content creation demographic of like, you got the soul bra seems to be like the main avatar from like my perspective, but I don't know how you stumbled upon all of this, and um seems to be somewhat of like a decentralized movement of coming back to our roots and um and displaying all of this information to like society, and wondering how you found it and how you started all of this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the color, and thanks
Yeah.
for having me on, and it's been an interesting journey, and I think that anyone that ends up in the health, wellness, self-development space finds themselves there because of either an event or some sort of health problem
Mhm.
or some sort of, depression, etc. Like for me, I actually didn't find it until I was 25, and my brother had been on Twitter for a while,
Mhm.
but I had never really gotten Twitter. I was like, I just, come on, man, it's not enough dopamine for me. Like,
Yeah.
it never hooked me. And I felt like it was a place where there was a lot of just political ramblings and low vibrational
Mhm.
rhetoric. But I work in tech. I work in an oil and gas technology company, and so I've been sort of on this business track ever since I graduated college, and I felt compelled to get onto Twitter once Elon bought it
Mm.
because I felt like that has to be where I'm just interested in seeing like what is it now and then what is he going to do with it, and
Mm.
actually getting skin in the game. Going from a consumer to a creator is a pretty empowering thing. And I was anonymous just because I had this other job, which I
Mhm.
still have.
Yeah.
But my CEO is down with it.
Cool with
He's
it.
like,
Sweet.
we think along the same lines of
Yeah.
decentralization, giving people their power back, changing society and these institutions. Like, you can only change it so much. Yeah, potentially we are on the brink of a lot of these institutions falling,
Mhm.
and we're going to have to build a new system in its place, sort of like what El Salvador is doing. But to bring it back to your question, I was just like, well, Sobra is anonymous, talking about all of these things. I have all of these things bouncing around inside of my head 24/7 all day long. Like,
Mhm.
it's just how I've been wired since I was a young kid. I was an athlete on a serious level,
Mhm.
and so my brain became wired for like, where's the edge?
Mm.
What's going to enhance performance? What's going to enhance my energy levels, my vitality, my sleep, my nutrition, my mental discipline? How can I make these things frictionless and efficient?
Mhm.
And I was this pressure cooker of these thoughts, and my journals were pretty much, what I was seeing on Twitter, if not more advanced.
Mhm.
And I had imposter syndrome um, before. Like, I sort of tried to start a TikTok,
Mm.
but I was in a place where I was like addicted to weed. I was in a low vibrational, like weird gray zone. I had just quit ski racing. So I was in this like wobbly spot in my life.
Okay.
And I did, I don't know, 12, 15 videos online. And I just was having so much resistance, I bailed.
Mm.
I saw Soulbra. I was like, well, he's anonymous, which would allow me to like continue with my professional career without any risk. And I could just start, posting memes, posting my thoughts.
Mhm.
It's pretty easy, it's pretty frictionless, and
Mhm.
also being anonymous gives me this level of self-expression that I don't think I would be able to pull off if I put my name and face behind it, because at the time I just wasn't like, I didn't know who I was
Mm.
as much. I wasn't confident that I could be authentic. So being anonymous and just like putting myself in that space and realizing that actually I have an experience of healing myself and taking my power back that's really valuable to other
Mm,
people. So I
mhm,
started immediately realized that light bulb and was like, I'm going to come at this from a full service oriented perspective. And I'm also going to come at it like 10-year time horizon. I'm going to be tweeting in 10 years. That's
mm,
how I thought of it.
mhm,
Took the pressure off of every single tweet.
mm,
I don't need this to be viral
mm.
because I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not going to let go. It's going to be
Yeah.
10 years. I know I'm going to get an audience. I know that I just had faith in myself and my thoughts
Mhm,
that I would be able to like help people. And I knew that I knew that it would come back around.
mm,
And that's what it has. That's what's happened.
mhm,
Um, that's what put me sort of in that place is like not even having a plan. I'm not going to be this niche. I'm not going to,
yeah,
of course, Soul Bra inspired me. Um, and he's a good friend. I'd consider him a good friend now because um, I've met him a couple times and he's like really, really practices what he preaches and embodies like what he preaches.
mhm,
And I respect the shit out of that.
mhm,
I think that there's a lot of grifters and scammers online. And so anyone, whether big or small following or like whatever, I really respect, and I've met a lot of people here in Austin particularly that are, like, living it on
mm,
the edge,
yeah,
and I love that.
mhm,
I wouldn't say that he's, like, the ultimate
yeah,
health like
yeah, he's the first person that I've just found,
right.
and I just kind of anchored that in my own perspective and, like, my line of sight, but then I was seeing through him other people that had a similar style of the blurry face, holistic approach to life, and these teachings that were, something that we're not seeing within the medical or nutritional mainstream. So, yeah.
Yeah, and anything that's going against the narrative is gonna get picked up on some level, and
Yeah.
that's why I went on Twitter was because I have to believe that that's the most free place
Mhm.
online
Mhm.
at the moment.
Yeah, for
I still
sure.
believe that that's the case.
I do too. Ever since Elon bought it, it's been an interesting, and I read his biography written by Walter Isaacson,
Yep.
I believe his name is. He's also written a biography for Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin,
Einstein.
Einstein. I haven't read those ones though, but to see through my own lens how he talks, obviously he's clearly doing something right if he's got all these different companies, right? He's got Tesla, he's got Starlink, he's got X now, he's got SpaceX and all these different things, and when he has gone on Joe Rogan, how he speaks, for me intuitively, I can just tell when someone isn't just following a script, and he's even said through his tweets. I mean, he also just does some really funny stuff on Twitter. I remember Joe Rogan pointing out like I think the Australian prime minister, and this is recent, like the Brazilian and the Australian prime ministers have been trying to shut down X in those countries, and the Australian prime minister just like said something about like bad about Elon, and Elon just had this like GIF or GIF of a dog putting his balls on, on someone's like head, and just it's just crazy that we're in this time period when someone can put something out like that to a prime minister of a country. And aside from that goofiness, like he's he's really put his money where his mouth is and where his beliefs are with just buying Twitter for billions and billions and billions of dollars. And there seems to be a growing force of mainstream media, which I would label as a propaganda arm nowadays. Some of the most esteemed media companies like the New York Times or Rolling Stones, you just see some of them plugging in these different trends and narratives that all seem the same, and that feel like it's somewhat propaganda, and he's bought Twitter, now X, and he's really trying to bring back absolute free speech and independent content creation and journalism, and so I too felt like a spark of hope, and you don't always want to just lean all of your hope on one person. So hopefully, like, I think it's stimulated other people to raise their voice too, and so yeah, I agree. And then he also, when he first bought X, like, he put out the Twitter files with Barry Weiss and these other independent journalists to show what was happening in their Slack channels during the 2020, even before that, during I think it was around 2020. I don't know if you've seen all that, the Twitter
Hmm.
files. So that was pretty astonishing to see how intelligence agencies were pretty
Also
much,
not surprising
yeah,
if you were kind of paying attention.
right, yeah, and so to know, like, they were literally like a department next to the human resources. So the intelligence agencies were like a department right next to the human resources department of these companies, and censoring political speech that they deemed were not, not right in their perspective. And so to see him, you know, carry X to where it is, does feel um, like there's a little bit more stability, maybe not stability, but that you can post certain things that may be against the grain and you won't be censored, versus before you would have. I mean, a lot of people were getting banned,
I would have been
and
kicked off so quick.
yeah. So I don't blame you for wanting to go on X. So anyways, to let you continue, um, you've been growing on there, using that and Instagram as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, Elon, if you're listening to this, like, turn the fucking floodgates on the algo already. Like, let these X creators blow up, because a lot of people are either falling off the train or they're going to Instagram because they
Yeah,
can't grow as quickly.
I think Ryan Griggs was talking about that, founder of Regenaissance. He was saying for some reason X is not doing so well, but Instagram is. So he's been leaning towards Instagram, but Instagram is,
Yeah, I
yeah.
posted something about slapping your balls and I got shadow banned.
Oh, really? On X?
Yeah, it's bullshit. Nah, I mean, yeah, you got to be more wary about what you say. You are subconsciously censoring yourself
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
versus just unhinged truth,
Mm-hmm.
speaking one's own truth on Twitter,
Yeah,
which, there's a lot of bad shit on Twitter.
for sure. Yeah.
But I also, when I got into the health and wellness echo chamber on Twitter, I was like, this is the most positive, uplifting, constructive space online I've ever
Mm.
experienced. And also becoming like, it's the most powerful networking tool in the world too. It's more powerful than LinkedIn. It's like, oh, LinkedIn, I have my little suit and tie and I'm a general contractor and like, here on Twitter, it's like, here are all of my thoughts.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
either resonate or you don't. And that's powerful, because then that gives you real connection. Like, hey man, I really, really like fuck with what you're saying.
Mhm.
And I also noticed you're in Austin, Texas. Like, let's chill.
Yeah.
And I've met so many incredible, like, I told my brother this the other day. I was like, I think joining Twitter was like one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Mm.
Maybe the best.
Mm.
And it's just something that, and that's not to do with like the audience at all. You could like, I met some of my best friends, like Ryan. I met when I had like 100 followers, and I
Mm.
was some sketchy anonymous based bra. And it's just been a beautiful thing to meet so many like-minded individuals that are on a mission that has roots in altruistic, purposes.
Mm.
And I think Austin's really like a hub in and of itself for that. But Twitter gives you that ability to, cross any geographical
Mhm.
limitations. And some of my best friends that I've met, like, there's no barriers. To me, I've never like, someone that DMs me with 50 followers, 20 followers, I'm like, this guy could be like one of my best friends
Mhm.
potentially. You never know.
Mhm.
So it's a beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing that like people are if they're doing it right, they're being authentic
Mm.
and speaking their truth and dissolving the fear of what other people think of themselves, versus on LinkedIn, you're like this like little glass house.
Yeah.
And on Instagram, you're like, you want to talk about, okay, yeah, there's this decentralization of creator economy,
Mm.
but it's all under these centralized fucking tech
Yeah.
companies
Yep.
like Fang, and then everyone's decentralized underneath, sure, which
Yeah.
is a positive thing, but they're still under the thumb.
For sure.
And Twitter, Elon's a volatile dude. I I appreciate a lot of what he does. I mean, I work in climate tech too, so I'm like, I'm aligned there. But I also think that there's a big question mark as to where is X going to go?
Mm.
Is it going to succeed? People are leaving right now. Uh, well, I say people are leaving. It's growing really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, can you keep people on there? What's the turnover?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It seems like I've seen a few posts by him where he's trying to encourage ad revenue or
Yeah.
revenue from content creators putting their, whether it's posts, whether it's threads, whether it's their entire podcast episode, which I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start putting at first you couldn't do it because these episodes for me, and I'm kind of doing a similar thing as Nolan. I just met him the other day for the first time, but I never was able to we were in the sauna, so we were just both like, it was crowded, but he's, in the same ecosystem. We have similar values and interests. We're both like beginners when it comes to podcasting. And I think I just saw him. He's been putting up some of his episodes on X, and these videos are like maybe 16 gigabytes, I think, after you edit them. And so you couldn't do that previously on X, but now you can. So I'm going to start doing that with YouTube and with X and then Spotify and all that. And even I haven't tested out Rumble, but I think Rumble still falls prey to being a centralized company, corporation. And Elon tweeted about this Brazilian situation. So there's a judge in Brazil that's trying to, it's pretty, it's not good. It's not a good direction. Their federal judge, I think, is just really trying to go a fascist or communist route and silencing journalists and whatnot. And Elon was expressing some things like that, and I think Rumble, actually, the CEO or someone from Rumble was like, "We have never seen this big of an attack," and they've seen a lot, but this big of an attack on free speech like we are seeing with Brazil right now. And Elon just like sub retweeted it saying same. And so Rumble, I think, I think it was either for this Brazilian situation or a different one, but they shut their services down in a specific demographic. And it was like, you guys are the beacon. You portray yourself as, I'm pretty sure they started off as like a alternative to YouTube, and now, and it's as a alternative for free speech and to prevent censorship because YouTube was doing that. And it's like, well, you're still a centralized company, and you're now shutting off your services to certain demographics. And so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But I've seen a lot of people circulate on the internet that Elon is still like a beacon of hope in a way, and I've even heard Rogan express like he thinks we would have been fucked if Elon didn't do this, which is a big statement, putting a lot of pressure and reliance on one individual. So I hope it branches out. But um, anyways, so I know, yeah, you've always been on a competitive mindset. You were a D1 athlete, and that, doing breath work and some of the things that you put out through your content are ways for you. Well, they were ways for you when you were competing. Is that correct?
Initially, I used breathwork for heightened performance
Mm-hmm.
and recovery. Um, prior to races, the night before races, I'd go outside with my bathing suit and like flip flop in the snow
Yeah.
and do breath work, and then I would race lights out the next day. And so I knew that there was something to it. Also, being a cross country skier, like, yeah, that's a lot of breathing. That's 50 kilometers of
Yeah.
breathing your lights out. And I didn't really unlock the power of it though until I got injured in May of 2020 during COVID. I ended up, slamming my shin in a weird way on
Mm.
this 80-pound e-bike and splitting my shin open and then not knowing, what happened and not being able to walk properly or without pain for 10 months.
Mm.
After that, my right leg was just atrophying, and, like, I would get to a point where, like, a month of, like, really, really stagnant, not moving, letting it heal, doing everything I could, dry needling, all the stuff, and then I would, like, go for a 10-minute run, and then the next morning, it would be, like, double the size, and I couldn't
Mm.
walk again, and it would be, like, after a month of waiting for that moment to, like, go again and test it out, and then the test failed and just
Ugh.
completely failed, and that was 10 months of that, and I was just, I mean, skiers are made in the summer, athletes are made in the off season.
Mhm.
Our training season started every year May 1st and ended April 15th. So I'd have 2 weeks off a year, essentially.
Mm.
And I did it essentially May 23rd. So I was a month in after coming off of a season where I was like in sick fitness and I was feeling really good throughout May, training really hard. I was on par to get like an 80-hour month out the gate,
Mhm.
and it all came crashing down. And by July 1st, it's like my fitness is not going to be what I wanted it to be. Like, okay, May, you injure yourself, you can kind of come back from that
Mhm.
couple weeks,
Mhm.
whatever. By July, by August, because we do all our volume in the summer. So every week is like 20, like depends, but 15 to 25 hours a week
Mm.
more of really low intensity volume training to get your base,
Mm.
your foundation that you need. If you don't have the foundation come fall when you turn the screws and start doing more hit workouts, less volume, you're just not going to have anything to fall on in the last kilometers of
Mm.
every race. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I shut my second company down that I was trying to run too and went and saw a doctor in October and he's like, you have this like bundle of scar tissue under your foot. I think it's a plantar fibroma, but honestly, I don't know.
Mm.
And given that this has been going on for 10 months and you've seen other doctors and they've all given you question marks, like I would heavily just start considering that your career is over and you probably, I don't know what it's going to take for you.
Mhm.
And my diagnosis will be that you can walk in a year without pain, maybe.
Mm.
And I can write you a prescription if you want. And that was like a total blindside. I knew it was serious, but I didn't think it would be that earth shattering.
Mm.
And I spiraled in the pit of darkness for a bit there. I already was there by the time 10 months came around. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Like, I, I have moved my body so many hours for so many years. Every single day, it's always been about like, oh, okay, my highlight of the day is going for a 2-hour run in nature.
Mm.
Like, awesome. Now I'm scootering around my house, sitting at my chair, trying to like do work.
That's what I've been doing with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's
It sucks.
motion is the lotion. And when you can't do motion, you really like emotions is energy in motion.
Yes. Yeah.
And you start to get this pent up energy that just like tightens the screws to the point where you feel clinically insane and depressed and like you're going to do something crazy at
Yeah.
any moment, and that's what happened.
Just to
um,
interject, yeah, I've been on the same path. It's been a few months, and I had a 5-week space in between when I actually injured it and when I got surgery. I was using some alternative healthcare crowdfunding situation compared to traditional Blue Cross. So it took 5 weeks to finally get surgery, find a surgeon, and get all the financials squared away. Um, but I was, yeah, set pretty stationary that, I mean, ever since. I mean, I've been doing some pull ups and push ups. And we can get into this later and I'll let you continue where you were. But what has been the saving grace for me is breath work. I've been doing Wim Hof.
Mm,
So whenever I wake up, and thank God I was creating habits. And I've been in Austin for 3 years. For the past 2.5 years, I've been going to squats. I've been strength training. I've been doing sauna and ice and different stuff and cleaning up my nutrition and doing breath work and, um, plant medicine and breath work and cold showers and different exercises every morning was already ingrained. So when this occurred, because I couldn't do sweat inducing exercises, exercises, breath work was like the way to prime the brain, like my, you know, level of consciousness. And if I didn't do that, and I'm kind of still feeling that, like doing these podcasts, I took a break for a little bit and I got back into motion doing these, but it was a little nerve wracking because I was like, I don't feel like I'm locked in as much consciously. I have to, and thankfully like I said, still doing breath work and it's been helpful, but that's also like, we'll get into this too, the placebo effect of, oh, because I haven't done all these things,
mm,
I'm going to not be on my game.
mhm,
And then you fuck yourself up just by that fear and that belief that you have within yourself. So just wanted to relay, I'm going through that right
mm,
now and it's been tough. It's
mm.
been tough. And I'm using a scooter. I'm finally starting to like do therapy and not using a boot and crutches, but yeah, it's a pain in the ass for sure. And definitely I heard someone say the other day, the phrase he used was like he hurt himself as well where he was skateboarding and his entire foot got wrapped around a rail while
Mhm.
while going down the rail and his foot got caught. Literally 180. And he looked down and he saw his foot in a 180 and he said it put the fear of God in him. So this has all made me realize my mortality and being grateful and thankful for exercise and breath work because I got into a motion of just go, go, go. I was still going to the gym, but maybe fucking around a little bit and not taking things, just not being as grateful for being healthy. And so when you have these injuries, you realize health is wealth. And there's a quote, I thought it was by Naval Ravikant or someone else, but you know, every healthy person has many different desires, and the unhealthy person only has one, and it's to be healthy again. Um, anyways,
Yeah.
you were saying you were kind of going down a little bit of a dark phase once you got injured.
Yeah. I mean, be careful with the pull-ups. Doing too
Yeah,
many.
yeah, I have been, yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
that's what I did was just overdid it. I went home after that doctor's appointment and literally did 2 hours in the gym, and every day subsequently, I was swimming in a 20-meter pool for 4 hours every day.
mm,
I was doing an insane amount of upper body stuff
mm,
to what keep myself sane, and in my mind, just, like, out of refusal and denial and fear, like, I was exercising out of fear.
mm,
And I was doing so many pull-ups. One day I was doing weighted pull-ups in the gym and my like rib literally like popped out and I was in a I like literally like nearly slumped to the ground cuz I couldn't use my right
yeah,
arm,
yeah,
shoulder,
yeah,
and then my foot, and so I got off the pull-up bar, I like hopped around onto the bench and I was like, "What the," and
yeah, dude.
I was just I didn't cry. I wanted to cry. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
cry.
Mm.
I just felt so defeated.
That's how I've been kind of feeling too, man. Because I was hopping on this leg, on my
Mhm,
right leg. So this is the Achilles right here, and I
mhm,
was hopping around in my apartment. I was using the knee scooter, but when I was cooking, I was like, It's just tough." So I would like hop around on this. And lately, I've been like feeling a little bit of weird stuff going on in certain parts of my knee and the other Achilles, and I'm like, "No, please don't." And then people have told me, they were like, you're more at risk of other injuries when you've injured yourself because now you're putting more pressure on other parts of your body that are not used to having that much
Yeah,
pressure.
but who said that? Doctor?
Um,
Not that doctors are always wrong, but
it wasn't the doctor, I don't think, but well, maybe it was, and maybe some other, like, stuff on the internet, but
I would say that I had a lot of the same fears and looking back on it. Actually, the asymmetries of your body and your brain are where you find your strength.
mhm,
Most of your power comes from the asymmetry. If you look at sprinters, they're not completely symmetrical doing a 100-meter dash.
mhm,
Our bodies are malleable, adaptable, and ultimately driven by
mm,
what you consciously believe
mhm,
and what you put your attention to. And I was told the same thing. Oh, you're going to screw up your left. Be really careful with your left now that your right is fucked up. And looking back on that, it just compounded more fear and scarcity mindset and the feeling of
mm,
weakness. And like for anyone out there with a health problem right now, like you are not your fucking label. You are not your fucking diagnosis.
mhm,
You are not that.
right,
That is going to cause shame and fear and guilt because then also your loved ones are trying to take care of you and taking
mm,
their time and money out of their day to try to help you. It puts you in a trap and you have to free yourself from the label and free yourself from this idea that you're imperfect and you're not strong enough
mm,
because that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And for me, it was that, you I fell so far after the rib dislocation. I was effectively paralyzed within my body. The only thing I could do was breathe, and I climbed my way out of that pit every single day with breath work on my back. It was the only thing I could do. It was the only way I could put emotions in motion,
mm,
and it was nothing more than that in the beginning. It was just my last gr grasp at being normal and feeling okay,
mm.
and
Had you found breath work prior to these injuries, or did you find it after the injuries?
I'd used it before, but purely for just performance,
Okay.
and nothing crazy.
Mhm,
I wasn't really meditating. I was, I would do ice baths and do Wim Hof for recovery and, do certain breathing exercises before and after workouts
mm,
to upshift and downshift the nervous system. But
yeah,
this was 3 weeks where I got on a streak. Streaks are so powerful when you are injured or have a disease or anything.
mhm,
And for me, I was like, I'm not going to break this streak. I know after a week of doing it, I was like, I know this is having a positive impact on my mental health, albeit marginal. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of pain, particularly pain.
mm,
What what is pain? How does pain manifest itself in the body?
mm,
And I realized that leaning into the pain is really beneficial instead of resisting it,
mhm,
like accepting it completely, but also being really quick to discard it as nothing, as a false alarm. Because when you wake up in the first step out of bed,
mhm,
you're like, "Oh, my Achilles hurts."
mhm,
Well, then that tells your Achilles like, "Hey, we're hurting. You need to be aware and you need to." What is that going to do? It's going to send more signals like, "Hey, we're injured." We're going to keep sending the brain signals that we're injured,
mm,
even though just because you just told us that we're injured. So we're going to keep the alarm and we're going to keep that running until we're healed.
mhm,
But the thing is, like, that's how you placebo hack your way into sickness, into poor health. You
mm,
can flip that on its side and be like, I feel amazing. Like if you take
yeah.
your first step, like, wow, it feels so good today.
I feel like that's so I guess my question is, how do you dance on that razor's edge of feeling real pain or signals in your body and not going, because you don't wanna ignore injuries, right? If I were to say, I had one of the doctors told me this, but it was a previous patient of theirs that got the same injury. They tore their Achilles and they ignored the physical rehab. They went back to the gym and they were doing box jumps like a couple months later, and they fucked it up again. So in that case, they were ignoring the injury that they had versus okay. And I have some people in my life that have been hypochondriacs,
Mm,
and I think I somewhat took that on a little bit when I was in college. Like looking back, I could see I had different signals in my body, and I was like, maybe I have cancer, or maybe I have this disease. And it was like, then you spiral into a
mhm.
really negative, fear based way of living, which induces stress hormones, and you can get in a really bad cycle. So my question is, how do you dance on that razor's edge of not ignoring like actual bodily pieces of information, but also not ignoring them? Yeah, it's interesting.
It's simple though. Set a threshold for yourself. So for me, it was if the pain is below a 4 out of 10,
Mhm.
I'm ignoring it
Okay.
completely.
Okay.
I will not pay heed to it because I know that there are false alarms going on. You've got a little, you know, ship captain down in your foot, down in your Achilles, waving the white flag every single morning,
Mhm.
but that's because you told him to.
Mm.
You told him something's wrong, so it's gonna signal to you something's wrong.
Mm.
You have to override that by being like, if it's below a 3 out of 10, below a 4 out of 10, that was just my level. Now in my life, I have gained the confidence to be like, if it's below a 6.5, 7 out of 10, I'm good.
Mhm.
Like, I know I resiliently can actually put my mental conscious intention and attention to the subject and completely override it and drive
Mhm.
through it. But it
Mhm.
took me going from, okay, 4 out of 10. If it's below that, I will not succumb to the signals. I will not allow them to dictate how I feel about it.
Mhm.
And that is how I moved through the pain ultimately.
Okay.
Was like, okay, realizing and researching pain on a deep level, going down the rabbit hole, that's really a helpful place to start because that gives you the confidence and the realization that not all pain is real
Mm.
and not all pain is bad. And if it's below a 4 out of 10, that gives you freedom to do certain things as well and
Mm.
to start moving your body and to give your body the benefit of the doubt and to start flipping it on its head and placebo hacking your way to health
Mhm.
and to being injury free.
Mm.
So that combined with actual true tangible tactical mental overrides on a day-to-day basis right when you wake up, your first step, what do you tell yourself?
Mhm.
It's the same thing with just your consciousness, with the way your mind operates. What's the first thought you have when your alarm goes off in the morning?
Mhm.
For most people, it's like, fuck,
Mm.
God damn it. It's so early. I'm so tired. Da 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 da. You can train your brain to change that. You can grab the reins of your consciousness and be like, nope, I am so grateful to be alive today. I'm so happy that I
Yeah.
woke up today. I'm so excited for this day full of possibilities. So grateful for this life full of wonder that's just like inexplicable. Me
Mhm.
walking around on a rock right now, and I get to wake up, open my eyes, and go like make some eggs.
Yeah.
And that state of gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. The mentor told me, and that's
Mm.
stuck with me. It's like, okay, you're right. I receive the energy when I do that, when I'm open. If you wake up and you are like, oh, ow, you immediately contract.
Yeah.
And then your attention is stuck on your injury.
Mhm.
Attention is at tension. We are in a state of tension then. And that tension is like when you have a bowl and the bowl will vibrate if you hit it with a stick.
Mhm.
But if you're at tension, it's like you're holding the bowl And if you hit it with a stick, no vibrations will happen. You are stuck energetically. No energy is able to
Mm.
move itself through your physical vessel. It will stay stagnant in your Achilles or in your stomach or in your head or in your heart. You have to be open to moving it, to liberating the fear out of the body. And the only way to do that is to relax out of tension. When we are in a state of stress, is when suddenly all of the options in our life close
Mm.
and you can't think clearly. You can't see things for what they really are.
Yeah.
If you are able to accept, and one of a powerful mantra is like, it's okay. Wake up. You're above a 5, you're above a 4 out of 10. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Radical acceptance. Like what happens, this is all like, you can think of it as a physical thing, but it's also a mental thing. Okay, I don't want to feel this way. Well, then that closes the loop and you are in a state of resistance
Mm.
versus I feel pretty bad, but that's okay. I feel pretty bad, but I accept it and I relax. Then that thought or that feeling of pain, it only has a finite resource.
Mm-hmm.
It only has so much fuel and it will run its course. But if you resist it, what resists persists. If you resist it, it will stay in a closed loop
Mm.
and you will spiral and circle the drain until you fix your thinking.
Mm.
All of this is going to happen in your mind. You could speed up your recovery by weeks if you got your mind to a state where you have full faith and belief in your body and in yourself and in your mind that you can heal completely. And that's what all of this is. That's what all the epigenetics, that's what all the Joe Dispenza, that's what all the human garage, all this stuff is. You believing that you have the power to heal, believing and knowing to your core with every cell of your being that your body was built and designed to heal itself.
Yeah.
If you cut yourself right now, that will heal. That wound, that incision, you were literally born with the capacity to heal. It was mechanistically engineered. And that's what's lost
Mm.
because we are told you have cancer, you have Parkinson's, you have Alzheimer's, you have a torn Achilles. You then associate your identity with that label. And then you do a negative feedback loop. You're stuck in a negative feedback loop. And what I'm concerned with doing with my coaching, with my brand, with my message is getting people to believe actually all the power is here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to give my power away to a supplement or a pill or a doctor or a protocol or a podcast or a book. Everything is here. And then it's not one step removed. I did it. And that could manifest into some really beautiful things in your life. You heal yourself, you feel pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why modern medicine absolutely has its place. I am a big proponent of the advances in technology and science that have allowed people to live longer, saved lives, but it's not the full picture. And they are not even allowed to sort of give you hope when they diagnose you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supposed to. They're like, put you in a box, that's your box.
Mm.
And it's not the full truth, but people don't know where to go from there. So, well, I'm going to spend $10,000 going to a Joe Dispenza thing so I can heal myself. I'm going to go on YouTube. I'm going to start giving my power away to all of these other gurus, people, coaches, whatever. And it's just missing it a little bit. And that's why I'm more about nature really does provide, but even more so, you can provide for yourself. If you're not able to tap into nature, you can tap into your own based core truth,
Mm-hmm.
your highest truth. And if you start living with that very, very as a constituent component of your consciousness and being, you are really a unified vessel of power that can do anything. The possibilities are endless. There are no more limitations. So often we put conditions on ourselves, or a doctor puts a condition on ourselves. And so I think that yes, you want to believe in yourself over everything.
So many different threads to pull on, or different things that sparks of fascination came up for me. one thing I've seen through your content is practicing what you are stating right now through making or training your reticular activating system, your RAS. So I recently did the alarm system that you
Oh,
put up.
amazing.
Yeah,
Nice.
and today is the first day. Very interesting timing. Yeah, so it was a test for me. And I'll there's many different things I want to relay, but today specifically, so last night I set four different alarms, one in the morning, one at like noon, or one, two in the morning, one at noon. I'm going to meet a friend today, I went to go meet a friend at a place, and someone that I idolize greatly because I'm a podcaster. I love Chris Williamson and what he's doing with his podcast. He's really growing quickly at this stage in his journey. And I've been watching a lot of his podcasts and his content creation. I'm just like, dude, you're doing something like you inspire me. And so I park at this facility and literally, I shit you not, as I'm stepping out of my car slowly with this injury and I'm standing up, he is also getting out of his car and standing up at the same time. And I see him. And the first thing that happens is a spark of like, whoa. And then also a little bit of fear because he's, I mean, you can classify him as a pretty well-known dude. He's somewhat famous. He's doing a great job with his stuff. He's been on Joe Rogan, all these different things, and he's like a huge idol of mine. And this was right at like 11:58, and my alarm goes off, and the alarm was, "How are you serving your highest self today?" And so I'm like, "Oh fuck." Um, and I think I served my higher self in a different way, but I also didn't want to bother him because he was like in a conversation doing his thing. He was kind of in his own mode. I didn't want to be like a huge fanboy. But at the same time, I also don't want to dismiss there was a little bit of subconscious fear of like, oh my God, like what if I make a fool out of myself when I talk to someone that is really I aspire or I get a lot of inspiration and motivation from him. And then later on, he just went right in and he went to go do his thing, sauna and ice plunge and stuff like that. And then when I met my friend, I like had a very vulnerable conversation with him, expressed things that I wasn't normally comfortable with. So in a way, I did serve my highest self. And I said to my buddy after I explained this part of my life that was a dark moment, I told him, I was like, it's a testament to healing these aspects of my life from my past because I wasn't able to tell people these things. Um, but it was just an interesting thing. I was driving on my way here. I was like, man, maybe I should have just introduced myself and said like, hey, man, maybe next time. But I've set these alarms and I kind of blew them off for some time. I once like I said, I'm 31 now. I hit kind of like a rock. I don't like to always throw labels on things. I try to be careful. Just like you said, when you diagnose something, you don't want to just throw a label and then you kind of go down a different mentality and you don't empower yourself when you slap maybe a certain label on yourself. And but I was at a pretty dark moment in my life. I had just left a 2 to 3 year relationship. I left a job that I was at and I moved back home with my parents. I was on the road out of college for like 4 years. So I was feeling pretty shitty. I was just like not my mental chatter was pretty bad. Emotionally, just not able to vent out. Didn't know how to like let those flow. And you said emotions are energy in motion. I was not doing that properly for years. And still to this day, I'm working on that. But I found Tim Ferriss. It was like the first podcast I've ever listened to. And that just set a whole different direction for me. And I started doing his I think it's like a 5-minute morning journal, 3 points of gratitude. I had never done this before. 3 points of gratitude, three affirmations, and three things that you're looking forward to or whatever every single morning. And then I would exercise. So I was doing all these things I was not doing. And unlike you, I was not really like a D1 athlete. College, I was drinking all the time, eating unhealthy, really not strengthening my character. And so this was just kind of like a whole capitulation of a lot of things that were just compounding. And so when I started doing those 5-minute journals, that was like the first time I was really training my reticular activating system. And then a few years go by, I'm improving in different aspects. I moved to Austin and I'm making all these different improvements to my life, going to the gym consistently, making great and new friendships. I've done some plant medicine that's helped with, and here's the thing, it's resurfaced some stuff for me to have to face from my past. But just doing all these different things. And I've talked about it a lot. So for the listeners, they've probably heard this many times, but tackling different aspects of my life. But I started to neglect the morning ritual of training my reticular activating system. And so as I've up leveled my health and my life, the quality of my health and life has definitely improved since then. But ever since I've done, when you're surrounded by different friends that are like inspiring you, and before it was like drinking buddies, and they would just kind of edge you on to keep drinking, or yeah, like you start to realize those friendships might not be genuine friendships. Once you stop drinking, you might be able to realize that. And so, ever since I've done some plant medicine stuff in men's circles, I've definitely grown, but it's resurfaced things that I've had to process. And what I've realized is I was seeing, like, by bringing up these things that I didn't realize I was holding onto through the plant medicine experiences. I then saw this thing psychologically, it resurfaced, and I was then seeing it everywhere. My reticular activating system was seeing that those heightened emotional states from my past, and I was kind of reinvigorating psychologically points of weaknesses from this event. And I've done a few plant medicine retreats and I've let out a lot of emotions. And I've, yeah, to a degree, even though I've up leveled a lot of things in my life, I'm still externally relying on podcasts, on self improvement books, on these men's spaces where you talk about your challenges, and plant medicine, like all these things. I'm like still not, there's still this reliance on an external source to empower myself. For instance, like the last one I did, the last plant medicine thing, experience, I felt like I had to go to it to release some of the trepidation that I was facing. That's not good. You should not say, I have to go to this plant medicine retreat so that I can, and I will say, I had the most immense emotional release of my life. And I felt, it was cathartic. It felt amazing. It was like I shed things from my past that were stored in my body for so long, and I did not know how to let go. So it is a tool that was helpful for me. Now I'm starting to realize, yeah, I've invested a lot of time, energy, and finances into things, coaches, and all these different books and these retreats to improve. And it's come to a point where I'm like, okay, this something's feeling off here. I'm in a way somewhat self-sabotaging myself because I'm not trusting myself in a way. And like I said, all of these things I just mentioned, the books, the philosophies, the retreats, they did help. Like I do feel stronger, but there's a balancing or of a self-awareness of not letting those things be like, oh, I have to meditate, I have to do breath work today, or the rest of my day is going to be filled with anxiety. And I was in a pretty bad loop at some stage in my 20s where I froze, fight, flight, or froze. And this was usually happening because I was excessively drinking. And so there was a moment where that had never happened. I think it used to happen when I was a kid. There was some stuff that happened when I was a kid where I would just freeze because it was a mechanism of how I would cope with the situation at a very young age, and heightened emotions occur. And so this freezing behavior happened when I was in my 20s and I was drinking, and it was such a casual environment. And I was like, why did that just happen? And it was like humiliating because I froze and my friends clearly saw, like, are you good, Shane? What's happening? And so the fact that that happened, I then kept in my mind, like, oh, what if that happens again as I'm speaking to someone. And it was just like bad cycle. And like that doesn't occur anymore. But yeah, it was very interesting. I'm grateful to have experienced that because I now have an understanding of how you disempower yourself through that. So, man, I mean, I'm very much attracted to what you're displaying here. It's very helpful for me at this point in my life. So,
Mm,
one, I just want to say thank you. Um, so
thank you.
I'm usually pretty intuitive with how I choose my podcast guests.
Mm,
I think I've been pretty good with it, but this has been like really timely for me.
mm,
So yeah, I've been on that journey, that empowering journey, and I've gotten to a point where I was just like, okay, I think I have to reevaluate how I'm approaching this journey because I started this podcast. I moved to Austin. Left my, I left another job to work a job out here that was more aligned with my mission. Like I work for a Bitcoin company. I believe in Bitcoin's principles, fixing our money system. So I like made all these decisions to like strengthen my spirit, my mind, and my body. But at a certain point, I'm still slightly self sabotaging.
mhm,
Um, so
mhm.
yeah, man. We were still kind of on your journey with your
Well, I mean,
injuries.
I have some thoughts.
Okay,
I have some
go
thoughts.
ahead, man.
You said, "I need to, I have to," multiple times
Yep.
there,
Yep.
and you dwelled on some past experiences where you didn't do the things that you felt you needed to do, or you should have done, or you felt like you froze. You have to let go of your story. You are not your story. That is going to give you the freedom to recreate yourself. You could get down on your knees and pray to God for hours, begging for forgiveness, strength, love, a different feeling in your body and mind,
Hmm.
different thoughts. God loves courage and God loves progression.
Hmm.
So this is about you, losing those layers, realizing I am not my story. I do not have to be defined by my story or any of the moments that caused me to then get into a cycle of fear that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, that I'm not lovable, that I'm not competent,
Hmm.
that I am not who society deems I need to be. Let go of all of that.
Mm.
You're not your story. It's imaginary. It's bullshit. It exist anymore.
Mm.
And the future doesn't exist either. The future and the past are imaginary. They are pixie dust.
Mm.
The only thing that's real is right here, right now, this present moment. And if you can cultivate presence, that is when the wheels will find the ruts
Mm.
and you will find alignment and you will get locked in to exactly what you need to do and the answers will come to you. And just like these opportunities have found you in in unexpected ways,
Hmm.
that's a symptom of you, getting near alignment,
Hmm.
not going on side quests, going drinking and stuff,
Yep.
but like you have a relatively defined course right now. What I teach is getting people to really explicitly define their course, their North Star. My course, my book, it's called Polaris. It's about figuring out what your
Oh,
North
cool.
Star is. Write down explicitly, and this is what I did when I was at my lowest injured. Started a Google Doc. I wrote down my explicit purpose statement. I wrote down the chronicle of self, my story in third person. What is the story of Nick? Nick is this, and he does this, and he values this, and
Mm.
blah 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 blah. All these different things. Certain mental uh, activities can help you. Certain mental um, exercises can get you to a place of centered, grounded presence and clarity. And when you write down, why do I do anything at all? Okay, well, I wrote down my purpose statement. That's why I do anything at all. Anything that's not part of the purpose statement, that's not a constituent component of me and my mission, is not in alignment. and not something I need to pay attention to. And if you write it down in a document, this is why it's not a book that you read, because ultimately the information you're taking in from podcasts and books and all this stuff, information is only valuable if it changes your beliefs. So a lot of people are actually doing podcasts, listening to podcasts, reading books as a form of escapism because they don't like themselves, because it's not there's a lot of tension in their body. They don't like it. If you can write down as an exercise, what is my North Star? What's my purpose statement? What is my value hierarchy? What are my principles? What do I want my mom or my dad or my girlfriend or my wife to say about me at my funeral? Certain things like that get written down, and because they're written down, you can detach from the outcome. You can get freedom from the outcome to then be present in your seat of personal power and in a state where you can really attune yourself to intuition. If you are projecting yourself into the future of all the things you need to do, you have to do, you should have done, that is throwing yourself energetically into the future or the past. The distance that you're throwing yourself into the future, 60 years, 30 years in the future, when I have XYZ Lamborghini and a cool car and a nice girl and blah, 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 like that distance, 30 years to then right now on this podcast, is the amount of tension you're going to feel. And that tension is not going to allow you to intuit. And because you're stuck, you're in tension. There's no energy that can move through you. How can you read energy? How can you be intuitive if there's no energy running through you? And so that requires a lot of just like recognition of thoughts, relaxation out of those thoughts, acceptance, and then coming back to you and your belief about yourself every single time. And for me, that's how I meditate, and that's what I try to do every single day. And it's simple as like the 6 R's is an exercise I have everyone go through that talks to me about this. Recognize. Okay, I was just thinking about the fucking, the conversation I have to have with my girlfriend. That's not useful. Most thoughts are intrusive, negative, automatic, and useless. Okay, I recognize that was an automatic, useless thought. Release, like scissors going over your head, cutting the kite of the thought. Release the thought. Relax. Re-smile. Return back to your heart, your body. A sincere wish for yourself. May I be completely free from stress and suffering. That's an example of a wish, a sincere wish for yourself. If you do that enough, it becomes muscle memory. It's like, oh, every time I have a negative thought, your body's like, every time this guy has a negative thought, he smiles and relaxes. So like, I don't really see maybe we're good. Maybe we're chill. Maybe we don't need this complex of I'm not good enough. I need to be better every single day. If you can let go of that, because that's the common theme I see across every single high performer, every single ambitious dude that wants to do stuff, is they beat the shit out of each of themselves. And that was me. It's like, okay, when I was little, a bunch of shit happened, but like a good example is, all right, I got second in this race and I literally like just beat the shit out of myself. And I started training even harder and being even more focused. And then the next race I won. And I was like, oh, well, that fucking worked. I guess I'm just going to beat the shit out of myself for the rest of my life so that I progress and achieve my goals.
Yeah.
It's a trap. It's a trap in perpetuity that high performers fall into. It's not, you're not feeding faith, you're feeding fear. You're feeding coal, not nuclear. Nuclear is love and belief and faith and trust in yourself and in God. And that is what your RAS should be focused on. If you can train that through, alarms, gratitude, affirmations, getting out of your mind and into your body and feeling your body like its actual power, its completeness, accepting it for how it feels and what it is right now. Okay, we're 6 out of 10 today. I accept that. That's okay. I'm completely lovable as I am today and deserving and worthy and powerful and strong and smart and capable of anything that I put my mind to. It takes time though. But this is the root cause of every high performer I work with. they don't love themselves. And at some point in their lives, they were taught that they are loved conditionally, believed in conditionally, trusted conditionally.
Mm.
And you have to take control and be the inner parent of your inner child. And the ego cannot be healed, it can only be held. This inner child can only be held and seen, listened to, and allow those emotions that from that time when you froze in your life, when you froze up, I would sit and meditate for an hour on that moment and really feel what that felt like. And instead of meeting it with tension and resistance this time you have the power and control to relax out of it and accept it. And
Mm.
that is going to liberate the fear in your body and circulate it then, and then you release it. And that's where breathwork can come in.
Mm.
Okay, I've liberated the fear. It's floating around in my body now. Now I need to get it out
Mhm.
through an exhale, through a bunch of exhales, through an exercise, through journaling, through a conversation. Release it.
Mm.
You have to release these things in order to like get rid of the dumbbells in your backpack that you're carrying around in life as you crawl and scratch your way up the mountain towards what you think is the summit. It's just a false summit. When I get $1 million, then I'll be happy and I'll get rid of this backpack. Or you could be like, actually, all of this starts from here and now within me. If I release it all here and now, I'm going to have some quantum leap. I'm going to hit the top of the mountain in a frictionless way, in a way that I can look back on what I just climbed and be like, wow, I lived fucking good. And I'm deeply satisfied with how I connected to myself, how I connected to God, how I connected to my loved ones. And those three things are really what we all kind of want.
Mm. Mm. Some powerful shit. Some powerful shit there. Yeah. And I think the challenge of the modern man, we have all of these, devices, nicotine, porn, alcohol, social media, all these things that raise, that bring pleasure and raise our dopamine levels. Um, so for people that are like at the bottom, they feel like they're at the bottom. Um, yeah, for me, I felt this darkness and I was able to make these practices and it was slow and steady. I mean, for me, at one stage, it was like pretty visceral and like almost sudden because I was at pretty dark place. And then I started these practices. And the first like week, I was like, wow, this really does make a difference. Um, so I want to continue with your journey where we were at.
Well, one thing that you just brought up in my mind: porn, weed, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, bad habits. What does a little kid do when he's not being heard or seen? He lashes out. He goes and takes the car and he fucking crashes it
Yeah.
because he's like, you're not listening to me. You're not hearing me.
Hmm.
And you have an abusive parent in your mind saying, be better, do more. You need to do this. You should have done that over and over and over and over and over. And you're not in brain heart coherence. You're not in inner parent, inner child coherence. Your mind and body are not synchronized together.
Mm.
That's where I would say people need to start is like, can I get my inner child to a place where he feels whole and
Mm.
like, okay, we're good. Never mind. Okay, it's all good. Like
Mm.
she totally heard me out here. He totally heard me out here. We're good. Actually, I'm gonna start playing now and like having fun with life and
Mm.
enjoying the process, trusting the process, and like giving the inner parent now has the ability to be like, look, trust me, it's all good. If the inner child gets scared, it's all good. I got this. I've got this. You can trust me. And that allows you to be like, okay, we don't have to fall into these forms of escapism anymore. because now we're unified and we know what the goal is. We've detached from these outcomes, so there's no fear of not being good enough.
Mm.
We can just sit in the present moment in our driver's seat and operate and do what we want and move in the direction that we want.
Mm.
And that can work for healing, that can work for making money, relationships, all that kind of stuff. You're whole and complete and you feel good about yourself and you can bring that energy anywhere. And so if Chris Williamson comes out of his car, you don't have fear because you're like, well, I feel fucking great. Personally,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need his validation for shit.
Yeah.
He's just a guy.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, hey, what's up? I'm Nick. And yes, so that's my one ending point on that
Sure.
subject.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you. So yeah, we were talking about content creation, your journey right now. I just realized you have a book, and I think I went to your link tree and I saw Polaris at the top. That your book, you said?
That's just my one-on-one coaching
Okay.
call that I sort of have. If someone's interested in the actual program, then I go in and vet them through that call.
Okay.
I used to have my Polaris as a free book if you signed up for my newsletter. Now it's my morning standard operating procedure, so just my routine.
Okay.
If anyone wants to like DM me, I'll send them the book.
Okay.
No problem. It's
Cool.
still free. So
And then yeah, you were you were doing D1 sports. Are you from did you say Colorado?
mhm.
Well, I think you mentioned that in a podcast with Nolan.
Yeah.
What made you want to move here? Is it because of the connections you made through Twitter and you saw? Because for me, it was seeing a lot of people vote with their feet during COVID, and they had there's I think still a migration of people leaving certain states like New York and California and coming to Texas or going to Tennessee and Florida because they were potentially seeing how those states were operating in a non-restrictive way. And then also I would just see like different people that I appreciated and men that I wanted to emulate move to Austin, and was hearing a lot of stuff. And then Bitcoin, the company that I work for right now, is out here. So that was like a multiple different drivers. So that was kind of the reason why I moved. So I'm curious when you moved and what was the reason?
I moved here a year and a half, and I didn't move for any of those reasons.
Okay.
I knew Joe Rogan was here. I was like, great, maybe I'll see him.
Yeah.
I moved here to work in oil and gas,
Okay.
and I specifically chose Austin so that I didn't have to live in Houston or San Antonio
Mhm,
or somewhere else. Just I knew that Austin was a hub. It was a cooler spot,
Mhm.
a great spot in Texas, and yeah, I came down here to really try to transform the energy industry and our goal downstream effects is to really lift people out of poverty. And so on one edge of the sword is me putting my voice out there, trying to help people, trying to inspire people. And then on the other edge of the sword is me giving people potentially the freedom to become someone that is inspiring themselves or
Yeah.
someone that builds something real that is super helpful for the world. So like I believe in human ingenuity and ultimately like prosperity. That is what's going to get us out of a lot of these problems. Climate agenda is not going to be solved by an anti-human, anti-impact
Yeah.
process. We
Yeah.
don't need less energy. We need more energy. Oil and gas is dirty. That's where the company I work for comes in.
Mm.
We clean that shit up as much as we possibly can. California thinks that we're not going to need, that every car is going to be an EV
Mhm.
and that oil and gas is going to be phased out in the next 20 years. I disagree. And I'm a tree hugger of the highest order.
Okay.
But I believe that technology and getting out of the way of the worldwide populations that are kicking and scratching their way out of poverty, because we're standing in their way right now, getting out of their way and helping them out of it, helping them not have to burn animal shit in their mud hut is a real tangible way of progressing humanity and creating real positive change.
Mm.
So there's that. And then there's me posting memes online.
Yeah, I don't wanna get too into it because I don't have extensive amount of knowledge. There are people in the Bitcoin industry, one podcaster, his name's Marty Bent, um, and Saifedean and some other people. They've had this gentleman by the name of Alex Epstein that's written a book called Fossil Futures,
Yeah, I've read it. It's good. That's
and
pretty much what I quoted just now.
oh, okay. Because it sounded like your perspective of oil and gas or fossil fuels is dirty, and I haven't read Fossil Futures, but I thought he was arguing for how it is a specific, resource that isn't or shouldn't be looked at as demonized as it is, and it sounds like you read the book, so, yeah, I'm a little curious as to because, like you said, there is this climate stage, hysteria that also I feel has, like, a political agenda to it, and, I'm all for I'm also like, "Let's take care of Earth. Let's take care of our environment," but there's this, like, political agenda that makes me think, uh yeah, it puts a bad taste in my mouth as a person that, displays and supports, like, human ingenuity, freedom, prosperity, and it sounds like they're using renewable energies. I know this is gonna probably go on a different topic here, but I just can't help but think, is oil really that bad? Obviously, if you're spilling thousands and thousands of gallons of barrels of oil into the ocean, you see the Dawn soap picture of a duckling covered in oil. Like, I always wonder, is that propaganda? Are there, you know, there's definitely probably some legitimate concerns of that oil spillage in the ocean, but if we use oil properly, is it really that bad for the environment? And I know Alex Epstein really gets into it. Um, yeah, this is like a total different topic. I'm a little curious as to what your perspective though is.
I think that with a lot of things, the truth lies at the extremities of the polarities. So the farthest ends. So the farthest end of one side of this is oil is really destructive, it's really harmful, it's really polluting, and there's an argument for it being, yeah, it needs to be outlawed. There's absolutely an argument for that. There's also the other side of the truth that the majority of human flourishing, prosperity, modern society as we know it is due to oil and gas
I mean,
and hydrocarbons.
like the,
Everything you're wearing, everything in this podcast
these
studio,
mics, yeah.
petroleum, hydrocarbon based, most of it. And so the truth lies like at the ends. You have to be able to hold these opposing things
Mm,
as both very valid. I have arguments for it and against it. And before I started working in oil and gas, I was like, sounds horrible. Sounds pretty bad.
yeah.
Sounds pretty polluting. And being in the industry, going to these oil sites in the middle of nowhere, it's real. Like it is Wild West. There is no modern, like it's the same facilities that have been there since the 1950s, same way of operating, just gunslinging out in the middle of Texas and all over the world. Like there's no one size fits all. There's not really good regulations.
Right.
There's not good enforcement whatsoever. Now there's we're moving in that way because there's satellite lidar technology, there's AI drones, there's methane mitigation and monitoring technologies. So it's like people are starting to get a glimpse and be able to reveal what's really going on.
Mm, mhm.
All the oil and gas companies, top 20 or whatever, their self-reported emissions were 90% lower than what they actually emitted in the past year,
Mm,
2023.
okay.
So there's this huge disparity in what's real and what they say is going on. And they're just, they kind of have a lot of power. They have a lot of immunity. There are players that are wanting to advance it and turn the industry into something that works for most everyone's agenda.
Mhm.
Okay, well, the truth is we need it. So then how can we clean it up to the nth degree until we can shift on to something else? And that's why I have massive respect for the state of Texas We're the leading state in renewable energy, and they're pushing really hard on being the foremost premier location of nuclear energy technology and development.
Sure.
Love that. Um, but we're dependent on oil and gas. It's how
Mhm.
our society runs. And all these doomsday preppers know that when electricity, if the grid goes down 3, 4, 5 days, when people realize they can't store food anymore, shit gets weird.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like right now, this is something that's not going away. Well, technology can bring us to a place where it's cleaner, there's more transparency, there's more regulations, there's better enforcement, there's a better understanding of what it actually is,
Mhm.
which would allow for the discourse of that the climate alarmists are pushing on the other end of things to open up, and we could go to COP 25 or whatever and be like, "Hey, this is the deal," because we assign meaning in such interesting ways as human beings. And if you're on one edge of the sword, like oil and gas is the devil, we need more solar, we need more wind, we need more, geothermal. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true. It's valid. But you're missing the other side of the coin, which is like, well, how do you do it? You can't shift the world to a different energy source
Yeah.
overnight.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of science that I still am learning and goes over my
Sure.
head. And like, it's a very nuanced topic. And in America, like, yes, we should strive to electrify as much as we possibly can.
Mhm.
However, we're not a unified country by a state border on a state border basis. Like, Colorado doesn't want to share energy with Texas, who doesn't want to share energy with California, and you're going to have to go through all this red tape if you want to have a unified grid.
Mm.
And so, well, then we're looking at decentralization once again as being a solution out of the energy problem.
Mhm.
Small nuclear reactor generators, which had a slew of problems with that. But I really believe that nuclear is the way it's going to be this is ultimately a thousand silver bullet solution, but nuclear is a huge integral part of that as I see it.
Mhm.
And we do need to move away from oil, but we got to do what we can do with what we have.
Mm. Cool. I've also heard about I've heard a lot of people that are more intelligent than me within this space because I'm into I have more of a specialization of knowledge with Bitcoin and some maybe a few other things, but Bitcoin specifically. And so Bitcoin mining, I mean, that's an energy consuming operation. Bitcoin mining is uh, it's what helps the network, the Bitcoin network. It's what helps yeah, I mean, going back to decentralization, Bitcoin is this monetary um, network that is solving the Byzantine generals' problem of how to create a form of money that is decentralized. Because we currently have the Federal Reserve, which is an ultra centralized uh, agency or institution that has been printing a lot of money and causing a lot of inequality. If you trace it back to the money, there's a lot of there's a lot of explanations as to why we're seeing a great amount of centralization, and it kind of brings back to President Eisenhower, I believe, his warning of the military-industrial complex, which has evolved into the media, military, pharmaceutical, food complex, and so Bitcoin is like this ray of hope that I see personally, and so it utilizes mining and um, they're the energy systems like fossil fuels, solar, wind, nuclear are also connected to Bitcoin. So it's something that I was just curious about because I try not to stray too far on the over the closed-minded ideology with these things. Because at one point I was like, no, fossil fuels are fine. California is just like, or other politicians are you know trying to bring about this climate alarmism and which is a way for them to now that they can't potentially control the money system because Bitcoin exists, maybe they'll try with carbon credits and a social credit system, which China is currently doing, which is in my view, kind of terrifying if that happens in the United States. I mean, I just saw a video the other day. It's like they see everything that you're doing, every single thing that you're doing, and they will stop you from trying to leave the country. They will not allow your children to go to school if you do anything out of the Communist Party. So that's why I was a little like nervous with carbon credits and you know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's nice. It's a refreshing breath of air to hear your perspective because it does sound like you have a balanced understanding because one, you're immersed into this industry and I love the explanation of the polar ends and whatnot. So just wanted to tap into that a little bit. Another topic though, when I was listening to you and Nolan speak, he was mentioning how you blew up from a so like porn and masturbation recently. Like some tweets I think went viral, and I mean I'll be totally transparent and vulnerable. I've maybe mentioned it a couple times. I mean, I got into porn. The first time I ever watched porn, I was a teenager. I was like 14, 15. And you know, my friends were watching it. We were just and it like as I've gotten older, I see how that has distorted my view of woman, my view of relationships, sexual intimacy. And there was a discussion. I didn't finish the whole podcast with Nolan, but I got like almost 2 hours in. You guys did almost a 3 hour podcast. And I really loved your explanation. Your explanation of your experience of not hypersexualizing women. Um, so if you don't mind, I would love for you to describe what porn is doing to modern men and maybe women, like what it's doing to their mindset of sex, to their brains. So like a mental understanding, like a conceptual understanding, but also neurochemical understanding, and then how that's affecting relationships. Because for me, I looked at women primarily in college as there's something, it's a fun thing to do, which
Mm.
sounds fucking terrible. Sounds terrible. Not, and I didn't really think of it that way. I didn't treat them like that, but like it was a lot of casual hookups in college, you know. And so I am at a stage in my life where I want to, you know, I'm striving to um, purify and you know maybe heal. I don't know if that's the right word, but like understand women are not just. It's not like it's not having this sexualized perspective on them is not healthy. It's diminishing. It's not fair. And so I personally, I'm transforming that, and my whole idea of sexual intimacy, what that entails. And I've actually read at least 100 pages of Montauk Chia's book, The Taoist Secrets to Love, I think it's called, and like semen retention. So there's a lot of different things. I know you've talked about it pretty to an extent. So yeah, I would love to hear how you know how porn and masturbation affects those dynamics from a conceptual, from a neurochemical, from a relationship perspective for
Mm.
men.
Yeah, I mean, I it's a huge topic, and I think that, there's been a lot of nefarious nonsense going on in society in my lifetime that I've noticed. And I believe that there has been no resistance whatsoever from the men of society because they're effectively neutered. They're effectively depleted of their energy, their creation energy, and yeah, you see it online ad nauseum. Testosterone levels have dropped 1% each year for the past 40 years or whatever, since 1981.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge problem. Like, ultimately, I do believe that men in society they play an integral, if not pivotal role in driving society forward towards a better future.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if every man is giving their power away physically, energetically, spiritually to porn, or even to, their own to women in an unhealthy way, then we're stunted. And these institutions, the government, whatever you want to say, they'll take an inch and there's no resistance. Okay, we can take another inch, and then we'll take another inch, and then we'll take another inch. When's the breaking point? I was shocked during COVID to see that there where is everyone that's sort of like at least raising alarm flags about this? I didn't see much of it within my own niche,
Oh,
within my own team, within my own school. It's almost this like defeatist mentality that every man has. That's like, this is just
yeah.
what it is. This is just the way it is. I was born during this time, and thanks a lot, boomers. I guess I'm just gonna go, escape into my phone. And I think that porn is a really destructive force.
Mhm.
And I believe in freedom of choice. I'm a freedom capitalist of the highest order,
Mhm.
but porn is one of those things where I'd be like, there's a really, really strong case to fucking ban that shit
Mm.
outright, because it just can destroy a society. It can destroy a man. And we all have had tastes of that to varying degrees. A lot of people that I've worked with, a lot of people that come into my DMs, myself. But it's this sneaky, insidious thing where you don't really realize it, and you also grew up with it. Like, my dad didn't fucking know. He's like, I don't know. This
Yeah.
is a phone. I don't know what that even is.
Mhm.
And you're a impressionable kid who's going through puberty, and all your
Mhm.
boys are talking about
Yeah.
shit, and you're like, I guess this is just it.
And it's way different than, like, what our parents grew up with. Like, they had magazines that you had to go buy from a store, which I mean, it can easily be done, but this is like I can just literally type up my browser, type in porn, whatever,
Mhm.
and it's there. And there's an unbelievable amount of genres of those porn videos. Texas, I believe, recently put a bar on like you have to be 18 years old or older. But I mean, you probably could just put on a VPN and like change that, so that's not really doing anything. Anyways, yeah.
I mean, I respect Texas once again, but yeah, you're right. And the modern war that man is waging
Mhm.
is having 300% above baseline dopamine levels at the palm of their fingers and
Yeah.
saying no their entire lives. No. And that takes a lot of strength, a lot of conviction.
I actually I have that in my notes that what you just said, the
Mm,
300% dopamine levels, and for anybody that doesn't understand what that means, can you just get into,
yeah.
defining that? Because I mean, they may have an idea of, like, dopamine being a neurochemical that brings, drive, right? And clarity and focus and the will to act, but, yeah, when we have these modern technologies that can amplify your dopamine levels at a snap of a finger, that's versus like, yeah, men in a more hunter gatherer environment hundreds or thousands of years ago receiving dopamine when they saw like livestock or an animal because they knew that was food.
Yeah.
Now it's like I can take as much nicotine as I want. I can look as much porn or social media as much as I want. Um, yeah, if you just
Yeah.
describe that, pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I'm not a neurosurgeon,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of chemicals that are released when you're having intercourse, or if you're jerking off,
Mhm.
or if you're looking at social media. There's a big difference between sex, which is sacred energy exchange with someone,
Mhm.
versus, you looking at something that's just being given to you. There's a big difference between earned dopamine and dopamine that's free and cheap. And what happens when you are looking at porn is you get a lot of this like a lot of dopamine, a lot of serotonin, a lot of other neurotransmitters get heightened, get activated,
Mhm.
and what happens is if when you release, um, it you don't have this closed circle that you would with a partner, where suddenly
Mm.
then you're with that person in union, and you're there present, and you have this like whole other experience, which is
Mhm.
like the post-sex
Mm.
experience,
Mhm.
which is really healing and important and natural. And that I think is healthy and powerful and good for you.
Mm.
But if you release and there's no love, there's actually a lot of shame and guilt and fear, and there's a huge loss of energy. And you just had this weird, like your brain doesn't know what to think of what just happened. It was like we were just an observer of something that was going on that was just, well, what the fuck was that?
Yeah,
Like,
some midget porn or
yeah. And people say post nut clarity is a good thing. I think it's one of the most painful things.
Wait, say that again.
Post nut clarity.
Post not clarity.
Nut.
Nut clarity.
Yeah. That's not a natural
I
thing.
just read I mean, I really love the book, but I just read Matt McConaughey's Green Lights. He's
Oh,
got a
yeah.
biography, and
Yeah.
he's got like this daily routine of like nutting, and he was like just to clean to clean the pipes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
Post nut
really I
clarity.
but we were and like I don't wanna ever, there's no excuse in many ways. We all are people with agency, but in many ways we were victims to a phone that we had no control over, and we had this primal brain and egoic structure in our brain that was just like, oh fuck yeah, that's a lot of dopamine. I want that
Mhm.
more and more. It's so
Yeah.
addictive. It's
Yeah.
more addictive than cocaine. And so that's the dragon you have to slay. And it's really, really insidious, and it gets to the point where, like, yeah, you can conceptualize it on a scientific basis. It's like you have arousal, and then you have release, and then you may have closure to the whole thing if you did it correctly with someone that you loved and someone you care about, and you really connect with them on a deep level. That's a tool for spiritual ascension. Jerking off to porn is not. It's moving backwards. It's moving. You're circling the drain with each
Mm.
time, and I believe that you're really sort of like they're they're both sexual, but one is like the epitome of darkness, a collaborative venture with Satan, if you will. That's what Jordan Peterson said. Um, and then another is like the embodiment, like when people have an orgasm in sex, the number one thing they say is God. Oh my God. Like, it's really connected.
Mhm.
It's a creation.
Mm.
It's a union of two people. It's like those things that I was just saying, truth lies in the extremities of those polar opposites, man and woman coming together in union, creating one baby.
Mm.
That's truth.
Mm.
That's based. You doing it alone, like what you do behind closed doors being something that's literally like demonic. And I don't say demonic lightly, but when I watched The Sound of Freedom over the summer, which was a tough watch.
I didn't watch it, but I've heard about it being it's a documentary
Yeah.
reflecting on the current status of child trafficking, which is a whole rabbit hole, and there seems to be a connection between Hollywood, between, you know, now it's opening up with Jeffrey Epstein, who was a part of intelligence agencies, which is just like that stuff I'm like tiptoeing my way into like learning about because it's so dark that I'm like I thought at one point the US was not that far below, you know, that at a rock bottom. But it
Mhm.
sounds like it's the evolution of based off of what I've what I've just glanced is it is the evolution of our intelligence agencies using blackmail tactics with sex trafficking on Jeffrey Epstein's island and all that stuff, and then even before all of this with like the Catholic Church back in the day,
Yeah.
and the evolution of just fetishes within sex, like want like be and to sorry to interrupt you, but just to kind of keep this flow of consciousness going. what I was going to mention is how one of Huberman, he's a neuroscientist, I believe, biologist. One of his most popular videos is on dopamine and how when you keep going for these chases of dopamine, your baseline goes lower, I believe.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at these different like sex performances, you're looking for something more.
Mhm.
And it seems like this is, and when you say demonic, like it seems like to gain more dopamine from the baseline that you're continuously lowering the floor of needs to be something even more like
Extreme.
different and extreme. Because I was always wondering, like, how can human nature ever get to that point where a priest is doing what we know they've done, or Jeffrey Epstein and all these things? And now I kind of understand a little bit through the understanding of neurochemical that description, which is kind of, I mean, it's wild.
Mhm.
But I think before we didn't know that about dopamine levels and stuff like that, so we just kind of we would call it a demonic possession, and in a way, I mean, it still could be, but it's also like this neurochemical manipulation and distortion and abuse,
Mhm.
right? Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, dopamine is a molecule that's pain and pleasure. It's the razor's edge between pain and pleasure. You get a lot of pleasure, but then there's a lot of pain because your brain wants more of that pleasure. It
Mm,
sees it as a survival mechanism,
yeah.
but that gets really distorted when you have um, really extreme things online that
Mhm.
you are using as a vein and tricking your brain into thinking that's my procreation. I need to do that in
Mm,
order to be a human. That's what your like primitive reptilian brain is like operating under. And this definitely ties into a lot of like serial killers like Ted Bundy's attributes porn to his like going to more and more extreme
yeah.
acts of
Wow,
violence.
that's fucking crazy.
He attributes that.
Yeah.
And that's something that's happening in real time because the global human human trafficking is about to eclipse a global drug trade
Yeah,
market
man. Yeah.
capitalization. And porn use child trafficking has increased 5,000% in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years. We're seeing this play out in real time as the population of men worldwide are slipping into this demonic force of darkness that's now 6 hours south of us right now at the border. There are organizations coming to the border. They're not allowed to keep the kids there for longer than I don't know how many days. They come and they pretend to be, oh, well, we can house these kids and blah, 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 blah. And then they can't. And they know they can't hold them at the border. So it's like, well, it's really, really horrible. It's really dark.
Yeah, man.
And I'm in pain right now because I have to go to
Yeah.
the bathroom.
Okay.
Can we take a pause and then
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
we got to keep this going?
Yeah, Ryan had to take a pause the last time too, so
Okay. Appreciate it.
yeah, man.
Right.
And we're back. So, yeah, talking about dopamine levels and the progression of the baseline of your dopamine levels going downwards, almost bringing a darker at it is bringing a darker, or the propensity to bring a darker aspect to human behavior and human nature. And
Mhm.
you were mentioning how the Sound of Freedom, which I believe I saw on Twitter, and I was seeing it was like getting censored from
Yeah.
movie theaters. And I mean, it's social media, right? Like you never know how accurate it is, but there was videos of like movie theater workers coming into the theater saying, "Sorry, we're not posting this movie, so or documentary." And yeah, it's a little scary to think that the people that are maybe running the gears at the top are affiliated with this. I mean, yeah, and I've just seen stuff with like P Diddy coming out, and potentially he's involved with that, and like
Yeah.
supposedly, I don't know. I don't. I do listen to music, a decent amount. Music has been a wonderful outlet for me too. I used to play drums when I was younger, but recently I've been following along the Kendrick and Drake beef, Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. Um, just like popped up, and I was like, because I think Kendrick's got some pretty cool lyrics, and Drake supposedly might be involved with this, he, according to like Kendrick's accusations through this rap battle.
Mhm.
And it almost seems like when you get this much power and fame and money, it's like this like pull of, oh, you're gonna potentially become a part of this demonic dark system. Um, and so, anyways, I'm going a little off topic with the rap and potential celebrities that have fallen into this. But we were talking about porn and masturbation in the modern man that may innocently find it when they're younger or even when they're older and they don't see the long-term consequences of it. Um, and how, yeah, just me linking this up when we were conversing about Huberman's description of what happens to your baseline and that connection. This
Mhm.
is my
Oh, nice.
reticular activating
What
system.
is it?
What was the most beautiful thing you saw today? Not what we're talking about right now, that's for sure.
That's definitely not. Dope.
But anyways, I'll let you
What
maybe.
was it? What was the most beautiful thing you saw today?
I don't know if it's necessary. I was gonna change the word saw,
Mhm.
maybe like
Experience.
experience. It was the call I had with my stepmom
Mm,
for Mother's Day. We had
beautiful.
a nice heart to heart, so
Mm,
it was great to call her and express gratitude for her.
mhm.
So that was one of the more beautiful. And then I also had a really, really great conversation with a great friend of mine too. So
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, how about you?
The most beautiful thing I saw today was the right eye of a lady that we were doing this exercise. We were doing this exercise together where we look into each other's right eye and we breathe and we hold different parts of their body, like different pressure points,
Mm.
not in a sexual way at all,
Mm-hmm.
but in a connection way
Mm-hmm.
of like, I am you, you are me way. And it was at this conference where they
Mm.
had everyone in the room do it.
Oh, cool.
And it was a lady that I would have never like talked
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
just not, but like just an older lady that I would have never crossed paths with.
Mm-hmm.
But it was surreal because just looking into another person's eye really makes you realize how connected we all are.
Mm.
And that was beautiful.
Mm.
It was a beautiful thing for sure.
Mm.
Um, and that goes along the vein of what we're talking about is like yes, porn is really destructive for like these long-term things for relationships. I know a lot of dudes that are married that are addicted to porn. Like
Mm.
it's really bad. To purify the well is a process that is really, really important for most men because I don't know a single man my age, older, that has not looked at porn or been addicted to it. And we all have work to do to see women for what they really are and hold them in this divine light,
Mm-hmm.
see them for the beautiful, entities and beings that they are,
Yeah.
and they are a direct line to the divine. I think beauty is a direct line to the divine, and what's more beautiful than like a beautiful woman's smile
Mm.
or a conversation with one. And if you can see them in a way that's, if you can really love women, not in a sexual way at all,
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really empowering and purifying for your soul to start viewing them and just that takes away a lot of the fear of like going up and talking to a girl. It's
Mm.
like I love all of you. The fat one, the short one, the tall one, the beautiful one, you guys are all beautiful. You guys all are giving me this like incredible energy that I would never get from a man. And we have to hold them in the highest regard, in my opinion, and really even understand like the feminine energy within us and the ambition that comes with that and the
Mm.
drive and the healing and the nourishing and the creativity and all of these things that come along with the feminine. And if we have a distorted view of what the feminine is, we can really just move backwards and self-destruct.
Mm.
And so, yeah, long term, this marriage is not going very well because you're addicted to porn, but also short term, every single day, like how are you supposed to believe in yourself if you're doing this type of shit behind closed doors? How are you supposed to trust yourself? How are you supposed to have faith in yourself? How are you supposed to heal yourself or build something real that you're proud of
Mm.
if behind closed doors you're fucking lying to yourself every time you do that? And you're cutting your soul every time you do that. And making that pain really, really astute, really right in front of you, really feeling what it feels like to do that, like looking in the mirror afterwards
Mm.
or looking at yourself from above as you are doing something like that. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What? This is not true. This is not based. This is not my highest truth. This is
Mhm.
not something that is true to me, and it's not honoring myself by doing this or by doing weed, chronically doing drugs, alcohol, not, fulfilling the promises we make to ourselves because those are the most important promises of all. And if we even playing the nice guy because you're scared of what other people think, or you're not being
Mhm.
brutally honest because you're scared of how it might hurt people, you have to eliminate that fear and you have to be fucking real. You got to live your truth with courage every day.
Mm.
And the more days you stack on top of that, the more your power grows, the more your belief in yourself grows, the more unconditional love you can give yourself. And then that's when you really start to get to play in life and move mountains with ease. And so it's just this real thorn in men. And I don't think it's good for women either. But I really think that, like, for me, it's been powerful being celibate, reading Taoist Secrets of Love, reading The Multi-Orgasmic Man, reading The Alabaster Girl, like seeing women for what they truly are,
Mhm.
just this embodiment of God. And that's just made my life so much better in so many ways. And it's another thing, like these priests that end up doing horrible things, or a lot of guys I know that have like tried nofap, tried semen retention. It's like it's all this suppression still.
Mm.
It's suppression and
Mhm.
depression,
Mm.
and that is gonna just fester. And you're also holding all of then these when you're doing semen retention, you're holding your sexuality in shame and guilt and fear. You're like, I don't want to feel this way. I
Mhm.
don't want to
Mm.
feel horny. I don't want to fuck this girl.
Yeah.
Why do I want to? That's bad. It's not bad. You have to let go of that. You have to flip it on its head. This is an act of self-love for me to breathe through this experience with a woman at a coffee shop, talking to her and just seeing her for what she really is, not with any sort of, sexual intentions whatsoever,
Mhm.
not hypersexualizing them, and just taking a step back, being like, I'm just a man. And you're just a woman. And I appreciate you so much because they're a big reason why men do what they do. And I want them to hopefully, like, I want women to start realizing their power as well.
Mhm.
Like, they are more powerful than men in so many ways. And a lot of these, like, Tate enthusiasts or, just feminazis, they want like a slave of a wife who obeys his orders and blah
Mhm.
blah 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 blah. It's like, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's based. I
I
don't think that's
agree.
true. I think that needs, she's feminine, she's also masculine. You're masculine, you're also feminine. You guys are both true, and you have to come together in union in a way that's ultimately a mechanism, a vehicle of ascension spiritually.
Mhm.
And we have to come back together and see each other for what we are, which is
Yeah.
we're all one. We're all the same in many ways.
Mhm.
And if you start seeing women, or if things happen in your life, you get cut off, some assholes being an asshole to you, it's like, well, instead of like getting pissed off at them, or instead of over sexualizing them, like look internally to like what's going on, getting back to your based truth and your core and your essence and relaxing out of it, realizing, okay, I'm present. It's all good. I don't I don't need to entertain this thought. I don't need to go down this winding rabbit hole of shame and fear and guilt. I can let that go on a daily basis. And that's the real work. It's called breath work for a reason. It's called spiritual work, shadow work. It's all
Mhm.
of that. It's work,
Yeah.
but it's the most important work you can do.
Yeah, man. And when you brought up Andrew Tate, there were certain moments I've talked to one of my friends of how he's provided certain motivations in certain parts or aspects of life, like having confidence as a man to go towards your own creative endeavor, right? There's certain things he said, and I would argue or reflect on like his, what do you want to call it? Hyper masculinity that might I don't follow him that much, so I don't want to accuse him of many things, but there's certain things I've seen that seems like he may diminish or treat women in a inferior way. I don't
Mhm.
follow him that much, but I tend to wonder if it's because of this huge imbalance that we have in society with the relationship with women and men in a more harmonious manner. And I almost think like going back to what you were saying, how men are becoming what's the word, emasculated or
Mhm.
neutered in a way. How like Tate is kind of counterbalancing that in a way. And I'm not condoning, I'm not supporting some of the things that he does, like certain things that he does. I'm just saying maybe it's a consequence of
Mhm.
what we've been discussing, like the porn, the masturbation, the weed, the alcohol, the social media, just diminishing and kind of demolishing the man's brain to even have any motivation. I remember when I was in a stage in life where yes, I was masturbating more frequently. I was smoking weed a lot. I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I was looking at women as a means of sex because a lot of men think the more, the more tallies you have on the woman that you have sex with is a part of your status. It's like, and that might have stemmed from like, what's his name? Genghis Khan. That's how you pronounce it. Like he
Genghis. I don't know.
Genghis. He like, he like impregnated an incredible amount of women and he dominated in a certain way. And that was maybe from a more primal perspective. That was the way of like becoming a stronger tribe because you had sex so much and you reproduced so much and you had a like a stronger and you had more numbers, right? And so that has just evolved in a modern scenario that is, it's just not the case anymore. Like it's not, you shouldn't think that your self-worth and self-confidence is the amount of woman that you have sex with and you being the dominant player in a man and woman relationship. And yeah, just an observation that I made because you incorporated Tate there. And yeah, it's yeah, potentially a consequence of how men are becoming exposed to these modern things that are not strengthening their character
Mm.
and their spirit.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are detrimental to our belief in our strength and our willpower, and I think that with with Tate, like, he doesn't have his story straight, frankly. Like, there's some truth to what he says. Then there's another side of the coin that I personally just really don't agree with, but at the same time, you don't have to love someone to learn from them. But I think that there's a level of discernment that you need in general when
Mhm.
seeing any fucking thing online. And if you can't be an independent leader of your soul and a thought and an independent thinker operating from first principles, you're going to get lost in the sauce. And that's what I see with a lot of guys on Twitter. I see that with just people in my life that like
Mhm.
have a certain view of women and what it means to be a man. And like an example of this is like Tate's like, fuck your feelings, don't think about your feelings, don't feel your feelings. Like, I disagree. I think that men need to get in touch with their heart and get coherent between their brain and their heart. I think
Mm.
that a lot of people need to start perceiving their lives through their heart, and that is going to give them their intuition. That is going to give them the answers. It's like, yes, okay, fuck your feelings. If you feel tired, do what you have to do anyways. Okay, yes, discipline. We all get it.
Mhm.
But what are you really getting at here? And I think that it's destructive because a lot of clients that I've had come to me from that line of thinking of like, I'm just David Goggins. I'm a dog. I'm a dog with a bone. Like, I will do anything it takes. I don't care about how I feel. I don't care about the wake of destruction behind me. I will conquer the lands. Okay. Like, why? What's your why? Is it a greater purpose than yourself? Or is this some ego driven
Right.
chip on the shoulder? I need to prove myself to my dad. David Goggins can't hurt me. You mean can't hurt me, dad? Can't hurt me, dad. That's what he's operating under right now. And there's utility to having a like grind set warrior mindset that you can tap into, sure, but you also have to get out of that masculine and come back into something that's going to recover and
Mhm.
recuperate
Mhm.
yourself. Otherwise, it's the same with training. You got to stress yourself and then you got to rest yourself. Otherwise, you're going to, and that's another point of truth. It's like, okay, you train too hard on the days you're supposed to train easy, you're not going to be able to train super hard. Well, you're not going to be able to train super easy. If you don't train super easy on the days that you're supposed to train easy,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to train as hard on the days you're supposed to train hard.
Mhm.
And that goes for everything. So there's this polarity again. That's where the truth lies.
Mm.
The extreme rest and then the extreme relentless savage warrior energy.
Mm.
And you have to toe the line and you have to flip between the extremities. And that's where peak performance is. That's where optimal heart brain coherence comes into play. Like, yes, rely on your brain sometimes, but you also need to rely on your feelings. You need to listen to your feelings. You're not just a brain, you're a body.
Mm.
And if you close your body down, your brain's going to close down too. Just like what we talked about in the beginning. If you're a bowl that can't vibrate, you're just going to twist the bolts as tight as you can, work as hard as you can, but you're not going to be in alignment. You're not going to be in flow state. You're not going to be in peak performance, and you're going to be living in the shadow of your potential ultimately. So
Mm.
I think, it remains to be seen whether he's going to have a net positive benefit or not. But I think there's a lot of negative things he says, a lot of negative perspectives.
Mhm.
And then I think there's a lot of positive perspectives that it's like, yeah, get your shit together, man. What
Yeah.
are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Because you've fallen prey to cheap banana monkey rewards on your phone. You've fallen prey to defeatist and victim mindset, not believing in yourself, and you're doing things behind closed doors that you're not proud of, that are lies to yourself that are really detrimental. But also, okay, yeah, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and enhance your warrior mindset and start going after your goals with ruthless intensity. But you can't only do that.
Mm.
And you can't only do that, especially if your why is to like get a bunch of girls
Mm.
and like get a bunch of and just be able to hook up with whoever you want and
Yeah.
have one night stands. And that's cheap too.
Mhm.
So what do you really want? How do you really want to feel in your body and in your mind every single day? You can wake up every day and feel like a fucking billionaire and be dirt broke.
Mm.
And if you're really broke, if you're a really happy person when you're broke, you'll be a really happy person when you're rich. But if you can operate from a place of gratitude and abundance and belief and faith and trust and love in yourself when you don't have anything, all of these things are going to come to you. And it's about becoming rich within yourself, rich in heart, not having a fucking Bugatti and a bunch of girls. Like, the quote that I go to is, it is more difficult for a camel to pass through the thread of a needle than it is for a man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Mm. Mm.
And that's talking about like, yeah, if you're so subsumed with material riches in life and you discard how you feel, you discard your heart, you discard love for others, you discard being of service to the world, then yeah, it's not going to work. And that's the dark side of capitalism at the derivative,
Mm,
really, as I see it.
mm. Yeah, in your conversation with Nolan, I think one of you said something along the lines of, I, one of the poorest man is someone that has the most riches, and that's kind of like a phrase or teaching or line of wisdom that is congruent to what you just said. Like if you're just so hyper focused on materialistic gains, and this also goes with spiritual materialism, and I've been able to bear witness or also have conversations with people about this, but like I had a friend on the podcast where he was like, he observed people that were very successful um, materially. They were CEOs, founders of a company that they sold, had so much money that they didn't have to worry about, you know, financially thriving for the rest of their life. And they then went to the spiritual pursuit. And instead of taking pictures of Bugattis and having the dangling the carrot of material pursuits, they were dangling the carrot of their next ayahuasca retreat and taking a picture of, oh yes, I'm, and like putting that on social media in a way that wasn't genuinely like maybe an inquiry to, yeah, they're kind of stuck in the same habit of chasing, and they're just doing it with spiritual materialism in a way. Um, and so on that note, with um, the discovery path of God, I'm curious what your experience has been.
Mm.
I've spoken and I've been learning more about Christianity, and then also a different religion that's a little bit more modern, understanding the differences between Judaism and Christianity, all these different faiths. And I still can't help. What did you just?
I have a chocolate bar in my pocket. I just put my finger in my pocket. It's just full blown melted chocolate all
Little,
over my fingers.
shit. That's funny.
Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Unexpected
God.
treat. God. Yeah. So a part of me, I had a conversation with my buddy Brett, and we were reflecting on how he observed people that were aligned with the Christian church, how they just felt and exuded this sense of selfless love and confidence because they were practicing a faith within the Christian doctrine and Bible for a long time, and learning a lot of wise pieces of information through the Bible and Jesus's teachings. And you can get that from Buddha, you can get that from Krishna and Hinduism, and I still can't help but believe that a lot of the main well-known religions are a different texture through the human perspective and mind that leads to the to maybe to God. And I've had a friend quote like, there's multiple rivers that lead to the same ocean. And I can't help but still feel that and gravitate towards that. So it's hard for me to like attribute to one religion. I don't want to just do it because I feel or I'm seeing and observing this structure in this community that looks fantastic for the health of all these individuals. But I don't want to just ascribe to it because of the stability that it brings potentially. So I've learned through experience by, doing a few excuse me, a few ayahuasca plant medicine retreats. Yeah, I mean, it was profound. And I've discussed it many times on the podcast, but I was able to feel that there is a life force. There is something divine within the universe, within humanity, within this planet. And it's just hard for me to ascribe Christianity is the religion, or right now at least. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. It's just something that I'm honestly trying to inquire in. So I'm curious about your
Mhm.
experience.
Well, my experience started in my family where I they did not press any religion upon me
Mhm.
or my siblings, my parents. We saw Mother Nature as God, and the mountains were my cathedrals and my respite from modern society, and where I got my power, where I got my energy, where I got my trust and faith and belief in all of these things. The more I learn about nature and how it works, the more I learn about science, the more I believe that there is a universal provision ultimately. But I also heavily believe that religion is a way to deepen your connection with that provision.
Mhm.
I don't subscribe to any one religion. I believe that we all live religion every single day with most things that we do.
Mhm.
Religion is religion. You are getting in the ranks of a legion by worshiping a religion.
Mm.
And for me, there's a differentiation between God and religion. And something that I saw on Twitter last night from a guy that I follow and have a lot of respect for, Nick Verge. He wrote something like, when I ask you God equals what comes up in your mind. For a lot of people, it's love. Like for you, what is that? God equals.
First word that comes to mind is peace.
Hmm. And ultimately, it's going to be different for a lot of people. But for me, my highest truth, this was the first thought I had this morning. God equals God. And to ascribe anything more than that is to supersede what we're able to comprehend as human beings.
Mm.
We ultimately don't know. Anyone that pretends to know to the nth degree of what's going on here, I have skepticism of. And a lot of people may disagree. That's just my current stance. And I believe, that religion is a really good way to learn how to conduct yourself and deepen your relationship with God. But for me, there is that lens of this is still not that highest based truth. And base to me is approaching the highest truth of yourself. That's the definition,
Mm.
along with like being grounded in Mother Nature, which to me is still my highest truth.
Mm.
Nature is where I feel most connected to God. A really, really hard workout is where I feel most connected to myself and most connected to God as well. And so for me, it's been a weird journey where grew up believing and knowing in my heart and following my intuition, trusting my intuition that there is something else going on here.
Mhm.
I used to pray. I used to have, if I had a negative thought when I was little, be like, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Amen. Blah, blah, blah. And I've ultimately realized now that thoughts are useless and can be discarded and you don't have to get so wrapped up in them. But God is something that's beyond my comprehension, but I believe in it. It's such a higher power that we're not supposed to know.
Mm.
It wouldn't, we would not be able to conceptualize it. I like to believe, I do believe that we're all connected, that we're ultimately just stardust wrapped up in flesh, talking to ourselves
Mhm.
and operating on this planet. And like, how are you supposed to, okay, you could say, oh, well, it's all meaningless, but I just don't really buy it. I just don't really buy that there's no creator because we're spinning around on a rock in a solar system. The physics, the laws of physics of our solar system so closely resemble what's happening to us on a cellular level as well. Neutrons, protons, electrons, all of these laws of physics like operating. Like there's too many things going on, and there's too much beauty. And when I feel love, I can't I just don't see it being meaningless.
Mm,
I can't accept that.
mm,
And I would rather live my life believing in God and get to the end and realize there wasn't any God than to not believe in God and then to realize that there was a God
mm.
the whole time. I do believe that it makes me conduct myself in a better way. I'm ultimately just a servant of God. He is the Father. You and I then are therefore brothers. And I have many sisters too, whom I love. And that's just how I'm kind of operating in the world because it's giving me the most power. It's giving me the best perspective. It's giving me a way to rationalize everything and also feel like, yes, there is something that is conspiring in my favor if I so choose to conduct myself in a way that is allowing for those conditions to arise. If I don't believe in myself, if I'm super negative, if I'm not manifesting the things I want in my life, not doing the things I should be doing behind closed doors, then I start working out of congruence with that creation force. Creation wants to progress and move forward.
Mm.
So God equals God to me. Whether that's a man in the sky, a woman in the sky, I don't know. But right now, what I'm operating under is the sun is more masculine, creation, and earth is the mother.
Mm.
Grounding myself, bouncing on the earth is a way of really connecting with the mother and the feminine energy, which is healing. Especially when you are on semen retention, and you're celibate and you're working really hard and you're in your warrior mindset a lot. I need to be balanced the fuck out
Mhm.
in Mother Nature and come back to that truth, the extreme of ends. And so that's my stance right now.
Mhm.
And that really happened in the past year and a half. I did have a time when I was like an atheist and I fucking like tried to kill my ego every day and that wasn't conducive to a good mental health space. It wasn't conducive to me being living up to my potential. And so there's the old adage of like you put a community of people on an island and they all don't believe in God and they all go Lord of the Flies on each other and kill each other and take resources and
Mhm.
steal and then there's another island with a bunch of people that believe in God and a lot of good things happen because people conduct themselves in a different way. Well, was God real between the two islands? Was God real? I mean, I don't know. And I like to also believe that there's a real there's dark there's darkness and there's light and you can't have one without the other, and that's another based truth in my opinion. And the extremity of like what's happening, let's say in Austin, with all of these people that are just trying to do good, like a
Mhm.
lot of conscious capitalism is going on here, a lot of people operating for a bigger purpose than themselves and being weapons of God and warriors of light and trying to pierce the veil of darkness with light that
Mm.
they have cultivated. I think it's a beautiful thing. Then there's the paradox of like, well, we're all one.
Mm.
Well, can those two things be true at the same time? I believe so.
Yeah, I think it can be true at the same time to know that we're all the same and we're all one, but we have our own unique distinctions and blessings that serve a purpose. Like a scientist serves their own purpose, a farmer serves their own purpose because of the diversity of Earth and the elements of Earth. We have human beings that can operate to help with the flow of the universe in a way. That's all just randomly coming to me, but that's something that I believe in. I think that's a great way to conclude it. We're like, oh, yeah, we're 2.5 hours in, and I'm really glad I had you on, man.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration for men in their 20s or even 30s, 40s. I guess it doesn't really matter what age. And you're gonna do big things. uh, in the sense of just helping humanity prosper, that I believe is, you know, healthy and so I look forward to, I feel like I say this with all guests, but I look forward to your growth and, yeah, the I think some of the things that or some of the reasons behind doing the podcast is to be able to many different reasons, but to help others like yourself and help myself as well. Because you've provided a lot of great perspectives and points of information that can help me become stronger, healthier, but also, as I grow with this platform, I can help others just display what they have to say and help them grow. So, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Really powerful conversation, and I learned a lot as well. And I'm grateful to be on.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Peace out. Deuces.
Peace.